In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my first Code Blue experience. For those of you who don't know, I am a licensed practicing nurse in Canada. I am an RPN. Majority of my work experience is on a medicine floor, where unfortunately we do have a lot of code situations. That's just the reality of medicine and working in an acute care hospital. So I'm sure I'm not alone when I say this, that the first Code Blue experience can be a very frightening experience, and one that definitely, looking back on now, is something that I could definitely see a lot of room for growth. I'm gonna take this off as well. Okay, so let's travel back to fall of 2017. I'm in my consolidation or my preceptorship, basically fulfilling my hours for my RPN program. And I'm placed on a medical unit in a hospital, actually the same medical unit that I work on right now, and a Code Blue is called. I'd already done many CPR trainings at this point, tons of sim labs in school where we've practiced on basically like a very lifelike mannequin and run through code scenarios where a teacher kind of watches you through a camera and like a one-way mirror. It's a whole thing. Basically run as many scenarios as possible in preparation for an actual code situation in a hospital. As prepared as I possibly can be, I am still terrified. Terrified. I just have this thought that everything that I've learned is just going to escape my brain. My preceptor, angel of a woman, is fully aware of my fears that I have to do with codes. And at this point, throughout the entire time that I've been in the hospital doing my consolidation with her, there hasn't been any codes in the hospital while we've been at work. Then the code is called. And she just had to go run to the code, run up the stairs because no time to take an elevator. There's another nurse on the unit who's also going up to the code, and she just tells me, go with that nurse, go watch. I'm basically watching the code happen from the doorway. And you're gonna hear me explain in my second video where I explain mistakes to avoid during your first code. One of the things I said is do not overcrowd the space. I did it because my preceptor told me to and I didn't know in the time, and it was a good learning experience at the time, but I was kind of just watching from the hallway, like doorway area, and everyone was aware that I was there as a student. I kind of just wanted to watch and step back. This other nurse, the one who came from my unit and I was told to follow up to this code, sees me, and she is also aware of my fear of code. Everyone knows me decently well. Everyone knows my fear of a code. Everyone knows I haven't experienced one at this point. The entire unit's very welcoming of like teaching. It was a good environment to be in for my consolidation. I'm actually very grateful for that. If you've ever been in a code situation, or if you're currently in nursing school, if you run sim labs or anything, you'll know that while you're doing chest compressions, there's usually a team of people that kind of just rotate on and off, whether it's the 2 minutes, whether you can do chest compressions for 45 seconds, no one's judging. You do as many as you can, as long as you're doing it the right speed, the right depth, we're good. This nurse that has come up from the other unit that I was told to follow is aware of my fear, and she sees me and she's in the lineup and she's already gone through, I think, 2 rounds of chest compressions at this point. And I'm just kind of standing in the doorway, like in awe of everything going on. There's so much going on. So she looks at me and she goes, well, what are you waiting for? And I said, what do you mean? What am I waiting for? And she kind of said, it's now or never. She kind of like pushes me into the room and basically into the lineup of chest compressions. Thankfully, like, I had a good relationship with this nurse. Like, she didn't just push me like, hey, you know, go have fun. She was aware of the fear that I had. She knows of the competence that I did have as a nursing student at the time. She basically said, you know, this is the situation, this is a code. There's no better time than now to basically practice and fully immerse yourself into the experience of a code. There's only so many times that you can watch a code or read books about it or run sim labs on it or practice CPR. Until you do the actual thing, it's not gonna be like anything. That was basically everything she said to me with that one push. Looking back at it, I was terrified, absolutely terrified that she had just pushed me into this room, into the lineup, into what I seen as a room going up in flames with this code, because little nursing student me was just like, I don't know what's going on. I get on the patient, I start doing my chest compressions, I'm doing them, I'm going well. I have no idea how long I did the chest compressions for. I don't know if I did it for 30 seconds. I don't know if I did it for 2 minutes. All I know is that eventually I basically say, I'm tired, I need to tap out. And then the next nurse is already behind you, ready to go, and we're moving on. So there's basically, we're not missing a beat in between the patient, you just keep going. I get this kind of adrenaline kick and we just keep going, rotating off with these nurses as we're trying to resuscitate this patient. Long story short, unfortunately, this patient did not get resuscitated. We couldn't bring them back. And that was a very sad moment all in itself when I was leaving with the nurse that I had come up with, the one that had pushed me into the room. I remember being very tearful and actually crying at one point because I had this idea in my head that anytime we do CPR and anytime there's a room full of medical professionals like this, how could we not bring someone back? Like, how is it that we have all these intelligent brains in the room and are not able to bring someone back? She kind of pulled me aside. We did a little personal debrief. She kind of just explained everything that kind of went on, what I saw. She actually complimented me and a few other people actually as well on how well I was doing chest compressions. And that actually made me feel a little bit better, just to know that little old me thinking I would mess up everything and forget everything, that when it came time to do the chest compressions, I actually did it right. And then she passed me over to my preceptor and she kind of explained the situation. She explained why I look so traumatized and sad. I've calmed down at this point. The nurse that I did the code with, the first thing that she said to me actually as well is, make sure we get some water, rehydrate. Your arms are going to be sore. You're going to be tired. You just had a lot of adrenaline pumping through your body. You're not really even going to think of the effects that this is going to have on your body probably until tomorrow. And boy, was she right, by the way. Every single time I have been in a code situation, it is like the true test of how well I'm performing in the gym. Nothing feels the burn more in your arms and your wrists than being in a code situation. So hydrate, drink water. We go to sit down in the break room because we're on break. Doesn't another code get called on my unit this time? Did I hear that right? I just kind of look at my preceptor and she's already gone out of the break room, okay? Like, she's sprinted out by the time like I've realized what has actually just happened. We just finished with a code. I did want to go in to help with this code, but my preceptor had looked at me and she said, you know, go back into the break room, go calm down, sit down. She said, you're welcome to watch if you want. One code is enough for the day. Just looking back now, I'm actually very grateful that she did do that for me. And I'm very, very, very grateful that she knew me well enough and my preceptor had known me well enough to let me experience something like this, because they're absolutely right. It was now or never, because what better time to do something than while you're a student and you can learn from it as you go. Obviously, a code situation is very, very, very serious. Eventually, every medical professional has a first in the hospital. And as long as you're trained properly and you have knowledge of what you're supposed to be doing, you should be okay. And honestly, it wasn't like I was being asked to do anything crazy. I was just there to do chest compressions. Honestly, what I've learned now, we can't always bring someone back. Sometimes it's just that patient's time to go. And as sad as that is, it is our burden as a healthcare professional to take that on and kind of work with family on grieving, but also as a healthcare professional, because we're taking on this burden, we need to take care of our own selves. Because for me, at least, my first code experience, it was scary. It was adrenaline filled, it was frightening, it was kind of a 2-in-1. I didn't end up doing chest compressions on the second one. It's actually preferred in our hospital, at least anyways, that if you were just on a code, like, this doesn't obviously happen often where you're gonna have one code after another, but it is preferred that if you were just in on a code for one patient, don't go and join on the other patient. And it makes sense because of how tiring that the code is. There's only so much energy you can give out, right? Especially for the amount of time that we did for the last person. So they want a fresh set of hands. So the biggest takeaways that I can take from my first experience is, for one, I am so grateful for my preceptor and all of the nurses when I did my preceptorship to be aware of my learning gap and my fear that I had of codes. And for the one nurse in particular who kind of forced me into the room and said, you know, like, you got to do this, like, now or never. You got to get over the fear and just do it. Like, you're a medical professional, you're about to graduate, you're about to be a nurse. This could be you and your patient. Basically, like, you need to know what to do. So here's your opportunity, do it now. I'm very grateful as well that I get to work alongside of these nurses today because I got hired onto the same unit. I hope it makes any of you feel a little bit better if you're scared or frightened or worried or anxious about your first code experience, that not everyone's code experience goes perfect. There's a lot of things to learn. There's a lot of personal growth, team growth, and organization growth that can happen. Anyway, so I hope you guys enjoyed this little story time of my first code experience. If you would like to see the second part of this video where I talk about mistakes to avoid, be sure to check out the second part. I will see you guys in the next video. And this is something that has personally happened to me before. If you wear glasses, ensure that they are secured to your face.